all see each other a little bit better. So you might try gallery view if you want to see everybody who's on so far.
Hey.
Welcome. Hi, Nick.
Hey, Peter.
Great.
Hi.
Hi, Becca.
Welcome, everyone. So I'm going to just welcome you in the role of inbound hospitality. My name is Lori, and I am a partner at encode.org. I've been a partner since December of 2016, and I cannot imagine working any other way. The for-purpose enterprise is an amazing experience, and it's so exciting to have all of you online with us here today. I see some of these introductions coming in the chat box, so thank you for all of that. And we will be having small group breakouts for those of you who've been part of those conversations before. You're familiar how that will work. And in that point in time is when we'll have the introductions with the group. We have a fairly large number signing up for today, so we want to move quickly into the content and then give you a lot of time to talk with each other, to introduce yourselves to each other, and to bring questions back to the group. So I want to also introduce now the rest of the ENCODE production team this morning. First is Dennis Whitrock, as he is in his role of event production and promotion. Dennis, a word from you.
Yeah, welcome everybody. It's good to see you all and those who switch on your cameras. And yeah, I'm looking forward to another great community sharing session with some fun and breakout rooms. Hello.
Thank you. And I'm going to make a quick dash over to Peter Kessels, who's also an encode.org partner and is able to be with us today. Peter, a quick hello from you if you have camera or not. I don't. There he is.
Hey, everybody. Can you hear me okay? I wasn't. Okay, looks like it. Yeah, a partner right from the beginning, one of the founding members. Excited to see so many people coming up and telling how we did this, our learnings, sharing that with all of you. So looking forward to this call.
Thanks, Peter. And then over to Christiane, who is our presenter today in the role of community builder. And Christiane, I will just let you go ahead and introduce yourself directly.
Alrighty, thanks, Lori. Yeah, hi everybody. Hi to all the folks that we already know. And for those of you who we haven't met before, my name is Christiane. I'm also a founding member of encode.org. And like Lori said, no way am I ever going to work in some other way. And having gone through two startups, starting up as a for-purpose enterprise, I'm really, really happy to share this with you, and then hopefully be able to get you ask a lot of questions and answer them from our own experience, which of course is the best way to answer questions for me. So Lori, am I to go right into content?
If you're ready to go, we're ready to have you zoom forward, and then I can just also say one last little word when we get ready to break out into the smaller groups just at the end of that segment, Christiane. So yes, we're ready to hear from you.
Okay, great. So I'll just quickly dive into it. I'm going to share my screen and take you through some slides. So before I sort of dive into this, why are we talking about what is the issue today about starting up? Whether you start up or you shift, or the entire conversations around what is it that organizations need today, it is all framed because we talk about this new world of work. So, well, every time we talk about the world of work, in every decade or in every year practically, it is the new world of work, but we do somehow all know and sense that there is one really big, one very fundamental shift happening at the moment. And again, it is titled with this new world of work, and there's a lot going on out there in looking into what it actually is. For us at ENCODE, working into what is needed next, we've kind of defined the 5 principles, or at least what ENCODE defines as the 5 principles that are necessary if you work in that new world of work. Which principles should guide your decisions, your behavior, your actions. And the 5 that we have defined is purposeful. So this is, I'm sure you've heard that a number of times. Purpose is the new boss. Gives orientation, be it the organizational purpose or the personal purpose. For organizations, it certainly is purpose, and the organization serving the purpose that it is intended to bring into the world. Holarchic is the second one, so that's a fancy word for either structure or a natural order, a full-scale replacement for the management hierarchy. Dynamic, going away from predict and control to sense and respond, and being nimble and responsive enough to quickly adapt to what reality is telling us is needed. Autonomous, being an ever-increasing desire for individuals to be able to work autonomous and in their own power. And last but in no way least, transparency. And the way we put it is have as much transparency as you can possibly stomach. So there's a lot more that can be said about those, but some of you have already heard this, and I'm trying to go through this a little bit faster because we have other events where we can where we go more in depth into those 5 criteria. But those are the 5 criteria that also are the sort of guiding the world that you will arrive in when you're starting up. And so there is the new world of work, and there are the challenges of starting up. And sort of for those of you who have already gone through a startup, you know there are some classical issues that you hit when you start up. The first one is the pain point of organization. So generally you find either you're alone or you find 2 or 3 people that mostly are friends to start up. Everybody is really excited about it. Everybody does everything. And then this whole thing starts working, and suddenly there is a need for organization. And then you start looking into, well, who is actually doing what, and who is the boss here very often, who is in charge, who has done what so far. So then when that phase comes where you need to organize, very often that is a really great pain point for a startup. The next one is the financial pain point. And that is not only the fact that as a startup you need, I'm sorry, I hope you don't see those messages coming in. That's not the fact that as a startup you always need, you're in need for money, and very often in dear need of money. It's also the fact that of ownership. You know, how do you define ownership? Is it like a predefined concept of 33, 33, 33, or 50, 50, or whatever you come up with? It is predicting ownership in the financial way through money or other contributions to the value of the organization. That is a great pain point for startups. The next one is the legal frameworks that we find ourselves in. If we have those 5 principles, that also means that we have a system of distributed authority, that we have a modern self-organized system, but legal frameworks today generally they point us towards power held personally over other people. And that also is a huge pain point. What is the best suitable legal framework for us to work in and to start up in a modern way? And then very often we have social issues. It's either, it's friends and organization are often a question. And when the going gets tough, you run into problems. And you generally have, as a startup, you have not really you don't really have a construct around what your social system actually how it should be defined, and what is the clarity around it. So encode, with its for-purpose enterprise, has then defined a completely new construct, a completely new enterprise, way of setting up an enterprise, by defining the 3 containers, as many of you have already heard. And the first one is the organization. So following those 5 principles of the new work, the organization until today is best governed through Holacracy and its constitution, because it really is the only written rule set that makes sure that power is held nowhere personally over others. In the organization, the focus is on the work in service of the organization's purpose, being structured and defined through the constitution of Holacracy. The second container is the company, with the focus on the property and on the assets of the organization, and the rule set, the new for-purpose enterprise operating agreement that encode has defined. And as a third container, the association, which is the social system of the people who are partners and members of the enterprise. So in that sense, in that container, the focus is on the people, and the rule set is the association agreement. So that's still very general, the for-purpose enterprise. And now, how do you move forward to become a fully self-organized and purpose-inspired, purpose-driven enterprise from beginning on, and how do you start it up? There is a completely new way of starting up an enterprise, starting up your business as a for-purpose enterprise. And we have experienced that, that process more than once, and can define it and break it down into phases, and each of those phases have very specific steps. I'm sorry. So you can see that 2 of those steps are pre-governance, what we call, so before you have actually set up the organization and can start working as defined in the Holacracy Constitution. And then there's the governance phase. You can't say post-governance, but while the organization can then move forward using the processes defined in the Constitution. The first phase, the incubation period and the individual exploration, is a really important period that gives you an answer towards who are the right people with whom to start up. That is a really big issue for startups, finding the right people. And in the sense who is right, what you need to start up for-purpose enterprise are the people who sense most purpose alignment around what wants to be born here. So generally at this time, the purpose is not yet really defined, but before that purpose is fully defined, you want to share with within your ecosystem, within your community, you want to share that idea, that sense that something is needed in the world. And through having different forms of communication, very often online, is very helpful. Invite a larger community to come and share, and then do that more than once. There's no fixed number, but you really find that after a while, there's a crystallization process, and you will have the right people who decide to become the founding members. That's an identification, and you find founding members and sometimes early contributors, and those are people that have either already contributed in any way to that but don't want to get engaged as founding members, but have already created something of value for the soon-to-be startup. And through that entire process, you become ever clearer, and you go towards what is then defined as the founding member agreement. So the founding member agreement is where you reach, this is sort of as you move on into the second phase of starting up. As that crystallization process has happened, the founding members are the people who are willing to do the work to actually set up the organization and the legal structure. So that's clearly work that needs to be done. And also the founding members then define together the initial purpose statement for the startup. In the founding member agreement, you also have specific roles defined. For example, you need a role that is called the initial actor. That will be the person that registers the legal entity. At the same time, it is defined in the founding member agreement that no specific privileges are connected with any of these roles and any of the people who are founding members. In fact, the founding member agreement in itself is defined as something that becomes obsolete as soon as the operating agreement of the organization, call it operating agreement or bylaws, we call it the operating agreement. As soon as the operating agreement is defined, there is no such thing anymore as a founding member. It is just something that is called with the evergreen effect. It's just something that just is part of the history. But a founding member does not have, there is no difference between a founding member or any other member or partner of the organization at any point in time, other than the beginning where those are the people who do the work to get the whole thing going. So when the founding member agreement is signed, you have people and roles that are defined that will take it forward. You define the purpose, the first purpose. We all know that we are talking about an evolutionary purpose. So this is the initial purpose statement and the processes that need to be taken. And the founding members also set up the initial circle structure and bring the organization into its first governance meeting. So this was on the chart that you saw, the pre-governance situation. And the important thing here is that what that solves is you have a clear line of authority of who is in charge for what from the earliest possible moment. So you don't then, after half a year when everything starts working and everybody has been doing everything, you don't have the conversation about who did more, who did less, who is actually in charge. That is something that is, if you start up that way, you have that clear line of authority and that understanding of who is in charge for what from the really earliest possible moment. And that really makes a difference. And then, you move from there after you've signed the founding member agreement. You move forwards to set up the operations. I've already said that. and you move forward to develop and then eventually sign the further agreements, which is in the core, the operating agreement. And so this is after you've set up governance, you set up the operating agreement, and you start with operations and keep going. And so what might sound sort of like, wow, there's a lot of agreements. Where there are a lot of agreements, there is a lot of clarity. So the operating agreement is at the core of the for-purpose enterprise and anchors the Holacracy Constitution legally. So this is the interesting part, because this is where the Holacracy Constitution is baked into the form where the operating agreement describes how the company makes its decisions and how it is connected to the organization, if you remember the Venn diagram with the 3 circles. And the next agreement is the membership grant agreement, which is based on the payment plan of the organizations. This is where it is clarified the membership grants. According to the units, we'll look into the financial instruments a little bit. So everybody signs a membership grant agreement, and then there is, of course, confidentiality and IP. And mostly following up a little bit later is the association agreement, which you can say is the agreement about the culture of the social system, is what do we expect of each other in the way we define our values, our collective values and norms. How do we deal with conflict? How do we deal with all the issues that are along the needs of the collective and the individuals? Everything around the social system gets encoded in the association agreement. And again, you get more and more clarity. And as it is, all these documents, of course, are as dynamic and ruled by their development, ruled by the tensions of the organization or the people, if it comes to the association agreement. So once you've got that set up, you then have the questions around the finances and the capital structures. So I said initially, as one of the pain points, that you have the question of ownership, and in most cases, both in the legal constructs and in the financial agreements you need to predict who owns what. And in order to get away from that predicting more into the dynamic and adaptive structure, you start up using dynamic equity. And especially in the startup phase, you get very clear through the membership grant agreement or through early contribution or through investment, actual financial investment. You allocate dynamic allocation interest, so-called A units. So when the organization doesn't yet have assets to pay for work, nonetheless, your allocations, whatever you bring into the organization or everybody brings into the organization, is kept track of and is rewarded in A units. And once you have reached a point where an organization gets, let's say, cash flow positive, and it's defined in the operating agreement when you actually have the so-called split date, where everything that has been contributed to the value of the organization is counted together as 100%. And whatever part you have of these 100% is your true equity is your true long-term capital interest. So classical ownership idea of the organization. So what you end up with is an ownership structure that mirrors reality of what people until that point have actually contributed to the organization. And then the A units turn into C units, long-term capital interest rates. The membership grant agreement defines your profit units. This is what anybody can expect out of the profit of the organization. You might understand that as a substitute for the regular payment. And then the D units, the so-called deferred units, is a fantastic instrument that will keep your startup flexible when cash flow gets low. You can deploy deferred interest, which means if you cannot pay out the full P units, for example, you keep them as deferred units. You add up deferred units, which means that when the organization can't pay you now, you still have the right to expect this organization to pay you at the later point in time. The good thing about deferred units is they bear interest. So the financial structures, if you build up your startup like that, you will have a lot of more flexibility and less dependency on, let's say, banks or classical venture capital. So this is a quick one, and just at this point, there is a recording of a FPE community learning session available on our website now, which goes a lot more in depth into the financial structures and these units. So once you have all this set up, it's all about moving forward and navigating the FPE, the for-purpose enterprise, with its 3 containers that are now so clearly defined, with a clear line of authority, with the clarity around roles and accountabilities, and the clarity around the financial and the legal structures and the social structures. So coming back to the 3 containers, the organization and the company and the association, it puts us humans, us individuals, right into the middle of the entire happening, and it creates what we call the new liberated worker. And if you are a member of a for-purpose enterprise and have gone through that process, you become a purpose agent, an agent of purpose for the for-purpose enterprise. The good thing with all these flexible structures that we have, you can do that in one organization, or maybe in 2, or even in more. You're free to decide where will you be able to invest your energy, your talent, and maybe even your money to be and align your purpose to the for-purpose and to the purpose of the enterprise. Okay, so this was a quick walkthrough, and the 4 steps of starting up a for-purpose enterprise. And we're going to invite you now to go into breakout groups and take all your questions or reflections on what you just heard into the breakout groups. We have decided to make this a little bit of a longer breakout group of 3 people, and so that's about 5 minutes each. So you will have time to introduce yourself and to share, you know, what your situation in regard to startup is. And then please share reflections on what you have just heard now. And I don't know, maybe you agree that someone in the group captures questions, or you want to bring them in yourself, whichever way you want to do that. But do share which questions you want to bring back into the Q&A session, which we have kept as long as possible so that we can answer all the questions. So Dennis, over to you. I have to, oh, wait a minute. I have to stop the screen sharing, right?
All right.
Okay.
So we have sessions with 3 to 4 people. And
there we go.
You can, you will get a signal when the session ends. You will see your partners, hopefully, or hear them at least. Some of you are just on the phone. I hope that works out for you guys. If not, just send a message in the chat box, and we might allocate you to a different room if needed. Otherwise, yeah, let me just quickly.
And when there's 1 minute left,
yes,
as you get separated into your groups, don't worry. It'll be just like you're in a workshop and then you're just gathering around your smaller table to have the discussion. When there's 60 seconds left, you'll see it come up in your little Zoom room that you can either, if you're at a good stopping point, you can join the main venue again, or you can just finish what you're saying so we don't just immediately cut you off mid-sentence, and then you'll just be automatically brought back into this general section. So that's a little bit about how it works.
All right. I'll start the sessions now. How much time do we have, Lori?
It will be 15 minutes total, so groups of 3, 5 minutes per person. Time yourselves. Welcome.
Hey, guys.
Hi. Oh. We forgot what topics we were supposed to discuss.
Yeah,
so
I forgot to mention, maybe jotting that down. I'd put them in the chat box before you all broke apart into your sessions, and I didn't know if those go with you or not. Now we know. Nope, we'll remind everybody next time.
No.
Okay, is everybody back? Wow. We still have one room.
Then,
Dennis, can you see if everyone is already back with us? And you're muted.
okay.
Let's see. I guess we'll go ahead and start back over with you, Christiane. So welcome, everyone.
Welcome, everyone. When you didn't know, when you forgot the topic, I'm sure you had some interesting sharing. So I hope that you enjoyed that sharing anyway. So, on the other hand, we hope we have a lot of questions. So how that works is whoever has a question, please, if you click on the bottom of your Zoom app, it says participants, okay? And when you click that on the right-hand side where the chat box is, you have a button that says raise hand, okay? So please, if you have a question you want to share, just press raise hand. So Alia has a question, for example, so Dennis can unmute Alia. And once you've gone, and Mitya, very great, fantastic. So can you just please, once we've answered your question, click the hand button again, because then it goes away. And that way we know that you're not waiting for an answer anymore. So Alia, I saw yours first. Please, your question.
Yeah, okay. This is a dummy question, but it's also foundational. When the for-purpose enterprise was originally presented, I thought I remembered seeing the LLC associated with the company.
Yes.
But the more we dive into it, in my team that's trying to create things, the more it appears that there's been a shift, and there needed to be a shift, that the for-purpose enterprise itself is the LLC. And then that raises the question of exactly what is the interface of the three mind spaces, you might say, that form a for-purpose enterprise. If the whole thing is an LLC, then is the association part of the LLC, or is it a separate organization? And exactly how is the company and the organization integrated? So what is the question is, where's the legal entity? What is the legal entity? What is it consist of?
There's a difference between the legal entity. So talking from the perspective of a startup, the legal entity in the for-purpose enterprise, if you look at it, and I've just seen that there are questions about the three containers, the company is where the legal entity sits, okay? It is the organization as such is the structure, okay? It's the structure in service of the organizational purpose. You cannot encode legally the structure, because that shifts, of course, continuously, right? So you have, when it comes to the legal part, you have the operating agreement as the bylaws and the form in which the organization is legally registered, and that is in the company. The legal system doesn't care how you organize, and the legal system also doesn't care what values and norms you share in the association. So these are, if you want, are mind spaces. You said that, but they are important for the functionality, because those are the foundations that encode the self-organizing principles. So the association or the company is of no importance legally, besides that the operating agreement, which are the bylaws, refers to a decision made that the organization will work as described in the Holacracy Constitution. And that is already put into the founding member agreement. That's where it starts. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Thanks for taking down your hand, Alia. And Mitya, I saw your hand up next. So
yeah, hey everyone.
Hey.
I have a question about the legal part, so the company part, the operating agreement.
Yes.
I'm wondering, is it meant as a plug and play document? Because you mentioned it kind of grounds Holacracy into the legislation of a country. So is it basically a plug and play thing, or does it need to be adapted to the local legislation of any country? And the second question is, what countries has it already been implemented in, if you already have some insight?
May I ask you, Mitya, in which country you are?
Slovenia.
In Slovenia, okay. So the thing is, it anchors Holacracy in the respective legal form that you have in the specific country, okay, through referring to it in the operating agreement. And it is plug and play in the sense that we need a specific solution in every country that we have a client, okay? So it's in the United States, that's where it started. So United States is really easy. It's in the final phases in the Netherlands. It's in Austria. Switzerland is on the way. Ukraine is on the way, and we're working in Japan and in China, believe it or not. So ENCODE works pull-based. So if you want to become a for-purpose enterprise, you want to start up a for-purpose enterprise in Slovenia, we need a lawyer that is not saturated, because the legal system gives so much room for fighting of people that every lawyer is really gaining a lot of money. We need a lawyer who understands that things are shifting and who wants to be the first in the country. So far, we have found one in every, well, it's not easy, but we do find them. And then we find a solution for every country. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does.
Awesome.
And the second sub-question is, I guess you have templates of all of these agreements online. Are they freely available? Or?
They're not yet freely available because the form is not suitable, but we are working like hell to get the operating agreement, which is like the core of the specific know-how that ENCODE has developed. We're working putting them online as smart agreements, and yeah, I hope you can. I hope we'll be there soon.
Sure, thank you.
It's not so easy. You're welcome. Okay, so Lori, can you help me? There was some question. There's a question down here.
There's one typed in the box. It looks like someone took notes for the group with the initial J and then put them here and is asking one of the people from the group to raise their hand. And I also do see Nick has his hand raised.
Absolutely.
So maybe while that group is sorting out, moving to Nick's question first. Or do you want to take the ones in the chat box?
I'll take the one in the chat box. What I see here are my notes from our breakout. What is the difference between company, association, and organization? So, who's Georgi? That's the conversation that you guys had.
Yes.
It says Georgi and Mitya. Okay, so Georgi. The difference with the company is the container, and you have to understand container as, Alia, you said mind space. Well, actually, the company is not just a mind space. The company is where the legal and the financial documentation and agreements are, okay? That's the company, and because the for-purpose enterprise has no employees, that is where everybody is a legal partner of the organization and also an investor. In the for-purpose enterprise, we completely redefine ownership and investment, and everybody is an investor because you might invest money, but you don't only create value through money, you create value through energy, through your time, through your talent that you bring to the organization. And therefore, everybody is an investor and is holding different ownership stakes. So all that is in the company. You have the organization, and the organization is a structure of the work in pursuit of the purpose. So this is Holacracy, of course, very clearly. It is the structure and the decision-making processes that hold the power for building the structure in pursuit of the purpose. And the third container, the association, is the social system. It is the collective of like-purposed people. It is there where the whole part of, the people and the collective need and everything that you usually have mixed up with all the rest in the for-purpose enterprise has its own container and its own agreements amongst the people and the individuals. Okay?
Thank you very much, Christiane.
Yeah, you're welcome. And you will find recordings on broader introductory on the for-purpose enterprise, I think on YouTube, if you check that. very soon to be on our website too. Okay. Yes. So next was up Nick, and then it's Elizabeth. So Nick, over to you.
Thank you.
Hi, by the way.
Hi, Christiane. One of the things that came up in our conversation was the perception of how large a leap there is between the conventional way of setting up the legal structure for a company now. You can just, register it online, pay a small amount of money, and you have your legal container there. And then you can start working and getting on with doing the work of your startup. The difference between that and the work of self-organizing or self-managing and creating all of this ourselves rather than relying on those predefined simple ways of doing it. And there was a perception in the conversation that it's a very big leap from how we currently do things to the kind of work and investment that's required to do it in more of a self-organized way. And that leap seems a bit unmanageable for a lot of people, or at least there's a perception that the leap is too big. And I see encode doing some work to take some steps in that direction. I'm just curious what you have to say about the perception and kind of reality around that, the size of that leap.
Awesome. Thank you for the question. So it depends. For example, if you want to do that in the United States, it's not a leap at all. It's really easy because the templates are done, and you will find it almost as easy as just registering online. The thing is, the conventional way of doing it doesn't solve many of the issues that you are then just going to run into. So the difference is you do have, let's say, in a jurisdiction where there is already a legal answer, you have a little more work to do. But you will have the advantage of the clarity, which will avoid that you run into all these usual issues that very often happen when you start up in the, let's say, conventional way, right? Like the clarity around ownership, the clarity around who does what, and all that what we have spoken about. Where it gets a larger leap is the jurisdictions where we don't yet have an answer. So, but that's just the pioneering work that encode is doing, and I wish we would already have an answer everywhere. That would be awesome. But it's, again, it's the pioneering work. So that's why we also have we're really interested in finding people who would like to pioneer this together with us, because we try and make that workable for everybody. And we need, in every jurisdiction, we need help from people who will point us towards some friends and lawyers that they know that will be interesting. That's just the way.
Thank you.
Okay. A word on the legal, Christiane?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. I was just thinking, I've been part of the legal summit that encode.org has been hosting with attorneys around the world. And they are coming together as a group, many of whom are saying from the teal perspective or the new world of work, and specifically now the for-purpose enterprise, that they are working to make the change in their countries. And so we're adding new attorneys every day. And that is something that if you have an attorney in the country where you're located now and you want to connect them with encode, that's also another way of helping make that leap a little bit more manageable and working toward the constructs of the legal following the business structure, because attorneys typically are looking to have that business structure plug into an already existing legal structure. And this is inviting them to turn that around. So just letting you know that is going on, and please let us know if you have one in your area.
Awesome, thank you. Alia, I'll go back to your comment in just a little bit. I just don't want to keep Elizabeth waiting for so long. Elizabeth, I have half an email to you in my email browser, so you're gonna hear from me really soon. Really happy to see you here. So what is your question?
As you were describing the three buckets and kind of what goes where, the question arose for me, so is purpose encoded anywhere? And if it is, where?
Okay, so purpose is the big thing. It already, in the founding member agreement, there is a first idea. Okay, so this is the first purpose around which this whole thing is starting out. And then as you move forward to the operating agreement, this is when the founding members have further researched or further searched and further sensed into the purpose. It is the founding members' job, if you want to. It's part of the founding members' work to bring the first clear purpose statement into the operating agreement as it is signed, and therefore the founding members sort of become normal members once that is signed. And then we have the association agreement, which every individual signs, and we put our personal purpose into we define our personal purpose in the association agreement that we sign, so that everybody in the association knows our individual personal purpose. And that is beautiful because we have conversations around that, and it's all about purpose alignment. And we like to define, we don't want like-minded people because that's boring. We want a lot of diversity, right? But what we do want are like-purposed people. So there is resonance, right? You want purpose alignment. So its purpose just goes through, actually is like the red thread through everything.
So, and as, whether me as an individual in the association or as the organization as a whole or the company gets clarity or more wants to refine their purpose statement, because the organization's or the company's purpose is in the organizing agreement, and that's the legal system usually cares about that.
The operating agreement?
The operating agreement, thank you. Is it hard to change that, or?
No, the operating agreement defines how refers back to the rule set of the Constitution, and there is a clear process and how purpose is defined, and how and how you evolve, how you bring the evolution of the purpose back into the definition, right? So it's not difficult at all. It's just when there are sensors in the organization, which is us people filling roles, that have the feeling that needs to be, there's an evolution happening, we need to sense into it, and then we do that. That's not difficult at all.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so next up was, short Alia, your question about Kim. Yes, we are in contact, but we are not really that closely connected. But I know Kim has been invited into our legal network. I'm not sure whether she's actually been there or not. She's very strong about and very good about her own network that she is building. But I'm in continuous contact with her, so it's going to happen sooner or later. Okay. Then Inge, you were the next one to raise up your hand.
Yes, just maybe your take on what is the ideal size of a company to actually make this all happen. So I know this is probably an impossible question, but any feel for it?
There is no ideal size, but I would say a minimum is 3 people.
Okay.
Yeah. Because below that, it's difficult to get into a dynamic, right? Yes. So it's close to impossible to actually practice, distributed authority with less than 3 people. So I'd say 3 people and go.
And
You're
go.
ready to go. With 3 people, you're ready to go, and then you'll soon be more.
So it could be 100, it could be thousands. I mean, what is your experience in the size of organizations that are aspiring this model?
Oh, this is 2 years old, so it's still fairly small,
Yeah, it's
right?
too early. Yeah,
it's too early to say.
Yeah,
but yeah, you mean it starts out with the small ones. In 5 years,
they grow because they're so successful. Exactly.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, doing it. Okay, Jose. I can see your hand raised. So
yes, I'm not sure.
please.
Can you hear me yet?
Yes, I can.
Okay. Just following up actually on what Nick was asking, because that was our conversation. And so you said that it's not that much harder to execute here in the United States.
Not at all.
So my question is, has anyone other than yourselves done it?
Yes, actually, there is a company in Colorado. We have two entities in Nevada. There's Encode, and then there's Evolution at Work, and there's another one who is registered in Colorado. He's registered in Colorado just the same.
Okay.
And yeah.
And so the question then is it just a matter of us being able to do it, or do we need to engage Encode at this point?
Well, at this point, you need to engage Encode because the sort of the operating agreement is at the core of what, it's what Encode has invested all its initial capital into developing. And the thing is, the operating agreement alone doesn't do it. You need to have the connection and the processes to set up the 3 containers. Again, as asked before, the operating agreement will be a plug and play online thing, and we're sort of trying to share as much information as we possibly can, and as we possibly can, also responsibly can. So the more and more is coming. Again, for example, one thing that is really important is the way how Encode has implemented and kind of translated the dynamic equity part, the slicing pie part, and the dynamic equity allocation. That's not exactly as it is in the book of Mike Moyer. So we've done some additional work. And so there's just, I mean, there's something Encode needs to make money on. We're a startup too.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but that does create some hurdles. That's the question, and not just financial hurdles, but also the pace at which you can move forward.
Yeah, but for the United States, it works really very fast, to be quite honest. So because of the templates being ready and.
But you don't have any California entities at this point?
No, at this point, we have Nevada and Colorado. People keep telling us Delaware, but for whatever reason, and I would have to, then we'd have to go and reach out into the legal community to say why exactly is it Nevada? It was just the most favorable thing. Okay, I don't know about the California laws. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Well, we hope Enlivening Edge will be the 3rd in Nevada.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Jose. So I'm just checking. Any other hands up? So, okay. So let me see. Questions? So any more direct question to that? Doesn't look like it. Oh, Jonah. Is it Yona or Jonah?
It's actually Jonathan, but it's shorter version of Jonathan. Yep. It's Jonah. So
okay, Yona. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for the whole meeting that you put in together today. We were also discussing the amount of complexity that Encode composed right now for deploying this system for especially for startups. So it's not I feel like about complexity when it comes to the legal side on how to plug and play, but also how to get people on board with this system. So as now, what I've seen so far is that the whole matrix of encode, but not still yet. This is something that we talked about with Lori yesterday, on how can this become much more friendly to the broader audience, you know, because I feel like we're in a place where we could say it would be Bitcoin like a couple of years ago. It's like we are on the verge of becoming something big, maybe, and this is the time and place to do and propose and to come together, maybe as a community to, you know, to create the better version possible, the best version possible, to start aligning and bringing people to the concept and to the idea. So the question of this is, well, this is something that I talked about with Lori, but might be for the rest of the participants, of how do you expect to make this much more popular for non-nerdy organizational matters nerds, that means for the rest of the audience? How do you plan to make it more attractive to those people?
Yep. So that's a really good question, and it's simply by finding the simplicity on the other side of complexity and encoding it into software, which we actually already are doing, especially around the tracking of the units. So that's the first thing that already is in the working, and encoding the agreements, making them smart on software. And that'll take a lot of complexity out of it. And I mean, the thing is that it takes a lot of explanation, but once you've actually got the hunch of it, it's not that complex. You just need to be very specific in order to get the clarity, so that you can get the autonomy, and then you get the transparency. So that's all kind of somehow tied together. So once you've kind of built that, it's not that complex. But again, right now we're working on bringing it into software, which will then make it really easy. That's one answer to your question. And the other answer to your question is the question of the community, which is what we are actually right now building. You will have, you know, you have this is called a community sharing session, which we are now considering you as part of our community. And you will hear a lot more from us. And we're really looking forward to the sharing. The interesting part around that is that the sharing and the evolving and you know, broadening the knowledge in the community about all this has to happen without compromising the system as such. So and there, you know, if you and I'm looking forward to further sharing sessions and exploration within the community. That will be the quality of the conversation, is to bring the understanding and the you know, coming from enabling what you're talking about, to make it less seem like this huge hurdle, at the same time without compromising the shift that it stands for. And that is really through the new legal aspects, the new financial aspects. You really have power held nowhere personally over anybody else, not through ownership, not through hierarchy, not through anything. And in order to get there, you have to be pretty detailed. So that's the situation in which we are. But yes, we will reach out and to the community, which is what we're starting right now. Okay.
Sorry, can I ask you one more thing that I just posted on the group chat? So does Encode have nowadays has any specific system to help entrepreneurs to set the purpose of the organization?
No. Encode as such doesn't offer that kind of service, but it will, you know, as you as you go through the startup process. Actually, so far it pretty much emerges amongst the founding members, and if it doesn't, or if there is help needed, we will certainly be happy to point you towards processes or organizations that will be able to help you along with that. Okay.
Okay, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. So Georgi, you have your hand up still, or is it a, is it a second question?
It's the second question.
Oh,
And
awesome.
just, I'm going to weigh in really quickly here on time. We have maybe about 2 more minutes, and then we'll need to wrap the general session here so we can.
Okay.
So.
Yep.
So ahead, I think.
Yeah, thank you. The question is the following. Do you have any experience of real applying of the legal documentation of the company in connection with the government? So any negative or positive experience of this documentation work, like maybe court hearing, or maybe just the guy from the government come to the company and say that this is legal, this is not, and the operational agreement, for example, really protected the company from the governmental issues?
Not yet.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Because I think that this is actually the most one of the most important things why the legal documentation is created. So I think we need to work on the way of trying to test the legal documentations.
Yeah, well, that's why we have to have specialized lawyers in every single country to get us to documents where the lawyer, you know, the lawyers always are the ones that say, well, this isn't workable because this, and this isn't workable because this.
Yeah.
We need experienced lawyers in each jurisdiction to say, okay, this we'll be able to go through with this in that way.
Sure, I agree with you. But still, all in all, the real experience is always much more valuable.
Yes, it's true, but we haven't had any experience so far where somebody was sued or something like that.
Okay, thank you.
Seen. Okay.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Thanks a lot. Lori, how are we doing with time?
We are right on time to do the sort of wrapping up of this part and moving into what the next steps are from ENCODE.
Okay, can I, so I would just like to sort of from my, one more thing to say from my perspective. So we've also started to speak about the community. When you have ideas, desires, needs, something that you would like to find in the for-purpose enterprise community, please, and me in my role of community builder, I'd be really, really thankful if you would let me know and send an email to community@encode.org. So community, I'm writing it at encode.org. Did I write it correct? Yes. So let me know. I'd be really, really thankful. And then, Lori, do we have a slide now, or yeah?
If you want to go back, or you want me to share the final slide, it has the community email.
Okay, you want to share?
Sure.
Yeah. So from my side, I just like to say thank you, and really awesome. Thanks for the questions, and I hope to see you back in many of the further community sharings. We have community sharing sessions, and we have community learning sessions. So the learning sessions are the ones that will not be for free, and the sharing sessions are something like today, where we just share, and hope to see you back when we dive into deeper issues. Oh yes, and a sharing session, no, a learning session is not yet scheduled, but going to come up around the founding member agreement, which is really, really, really crucial for the startup process. So we're going to dig deeper into that. And stay posted, because we're going to inform you when this is scheduled.
Also, just a quick note, if you can see on the screen, the encode.org/shop, where the financial session we referred to earlier, it is working now. So I got a note off to web presence. So if you try it, it should be working and functioning. So just a quick update on that.
Yep. Thanks for the feedback anyway. So
yes.
yeah, thank you all. Lori, back and over to you.
Great. Well, thank you so much from all over the world to take the time to join us here and to help create the world of work we all want to see. You know, listening earlier about some of that bigger leap, you know, just like the iterations of all technology, the first ones, you know, those big computers and clunky big phones that were in a bag, and now, you know, the technology moves forward based on communities much like this that help create the new reality. So stay with us, and we're working toward making, you know, new versions and making them more user friendly, and you're a big part of that. So
yeah,
thank you so much.
Yeah, and your questions and your the things you pull out from us, hopefully pull the best from us and co-create this thing. Like when you say, "Oh, how does this work in this jurisdiction?" Great, that's a new tension to be processed, and we're all about that. So stay engaged, and then we'll hope to see you again soon. Yeah.
Exactly. Thank you so much. Okay.
Oh,
thank you all.
Unmute, say goodbyes.
It's past. Okay.
Yay.
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
This
Bye.
was such a generous offering and sharing. Thank you very much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.